Hi, I'm Max Kaiser. Just kidding. I'm Josh from eLift Program. Welcome to Project Freedom Podcast, episode number 1, where we discuss anything and everything that involves sovereign individuality, individualism, self-improvement, living a lifestyle that you want on your terms. And yeah, I'm Josh, your host. So this is a new podcast that I got, guys. So you'll have to bear with me. It's not 100% organized yet. And I kind of just wanted to do something that was just free form and a little bit more flowing. Because there's a lot of things I like to talk about other than just tech. And not to say that we're not going to talk about tech ever, because you guys know I love my tech. But that being said, so for the people in here who follow me or watching this that follow me and aren't from the developer end, aren't here for like tech stuff. So there's some red pill people, some people from Modern Life Dating, MLD, and John. A lot of you guys came to Miami this weekend, and we hung out for actually more than a weekend, for like a whole week. And I got to meet a lot of you guys, and it was pretty fun. And it got me thinking about a lot of things. Hearing people's stories in person, it was pretty cool. And one guy in particular I'm thinking about is he was talking to me, and I won't say who he was, but he basically told me that, he's changed his life so much just being in the group, in several groups, and just hanging around, like-minded people that a year ago from that day, he wouldn't have even been able to afford to come down to Miami and meet everybody and just hang out. And that at one point, he was working in a city that wasn't the most friendliest city to be in, one could say. And I myself included also had something similar. And leaving that city was one of the best things that he ever did. And recently, actually today, I got an email from LinkedIn. Let me see if I can find this thing and pull it up for you guys, because it's pretty interesting. I got an email from LinkedIn and I think it might have actually been a bot, guys. But basically, it was describing something that was called the Great Resignment, or the Great Resignation, or something like that. Now, it's not the Great Reset. You guys probably all know what that is. But yeah, 1 second, guys. Let me find this thing. Should probably search for it, shouldn't I? All right, here we go. So let's see if I can show this without showing my entire email for everybody. Yeah, I can. All right. So check this out, guys. If I can actually share my screen. There we go. Hi, Josh. My name is Andrew Seaman. I'm an editor at LinkedIn News. So this is just an editor from LinkedIn News, actually. Here, I'll just show it to this. It'll be easier for y'all to see. I'm an editor for LinkedIn News. I reach out to people who I think can add informed perspectives about the ever-changing kind of work. The world is beginning to see some bright spots in its battle against Crab-19. Probably shouldn't even say that word. As a result, many people are thinking of shaking up their careers as restrictions are lifted and economies improve. In fact, experts are predicting a quote-unquote great resignation due to people wanting to move on and try something new. What's your advice for people making a shift now, whether it's landing a new job, yada, yada, yada? All right, so I didn't have any idea really what this was, right? I was like, the Great Resignation. So then I went to Google and I just Googled the Great Resignation, and this is what came up. I can share this too, guys. All right. So The Great Resignation in here is here. This is how employers should prepare. And basically, instead of reading this entire article, see if we can point out something that's actually important. But the Great Resignation is propelled by three forces: the changing generation, economic crisis, and the realization people have had that they can have a different social contract. I thought that was funny because I've only heard a few people ever use that term before. One being myself, and I've like never would have thought I would have found this on a fast, easy, and cheesy article from Google. Spending more time with family when they worked remote and skip the commute, he says. And if you look at the key points in here, let's see what he talks about. Develop your managing team. Yeah, nothing notable in there, unless you guys want to read the entire article. And I can drop the link for this, guys, if anybody actually wants to read it. But farce, like the whole economy's improving thing. But Cody, I can tell you this, dude. Like, I think that certain parts of the economies have improved, and then certain parts have just gotten even worse. And honestly, actually, like that's been I think if we guys look at Amazon, for example, they had one of the best years they've ever had in their entire time there, right? In the last at least decade. And so like services like Amazon, they're doing great, but a lot of like mom and pop shops, restaurants, and other stuff are not doing too well, right? And obviously we all know why that is, right? Because you can't compete if you tell people that they can't go outside their fucking house, right? I definitely think some things are about to be shaken up. How so? I don't think we know yet. Yeah, I don't know either. Omichael, tmichael. Is this worldwide, like the UK or just the US? I think this is, as far as I know, this is most certainly in the US. But if I had to guess, it's probably going to be worldwide too. But I'm going to get to that in a second. I'm going to try to make at least try to make my point with it. But okay, so here's what I'm seeing with this, guys. A lot of people, myself included, have thought about when they're working their job that, am I really doing this job? Am I working for this specific company because I'm passionate about it, because I really care about whatever specific company that said person works for? So I'll just use an example. So you have Susie. All right. Susie's a middle-aged woman in her early 40s or whatever constitutes a middle-aged woman. And Susie's got 2 kids at home, and she graduated from college with some kind of like marketing degree, right? She didn't basically she just graduated from college with a marketing degree, did everything that she was told to do, right? Did everything that society told her to do, and got a job at a company. Maybe it was the first or second company that she applied to. And she didn't particularly apply to this company because, she's really aligned with their company statement or whatever, right? Maybe she's working at the local dairy in Podunk Town, Mississippi, and she's just like the marketing lady there, right? Yeah. Joshua Fluke, he's pretty cool. He's some things I agree with him about, some things I don't. But but this is kind of like this could be considered to be related to what he talks about quite often. But so this lady, like, she doesn't even like really care so much. I'm just being honest here, guys. If we're all just honest to ourselves, most people that are working some sort of corporate job aren't like working that job because they really love the family company and they really align with the company's belief sets and this and that. They're working this job because they have a family and they have bills to pay and they have food to put on the table, right? And so we have this kind of worldwide crazy thing that goes on, okay? And people are finally allowed to go and work from home. People that aren't just tech related or IT. And thus, people kind of got a taste of some things that were more important to them, right? Because guys, like, whether you believe that there's an afterlife or not, if you have family or friends or things that you want to accomplish, you only have X amount of time to do it, right? And we don't all, none of us actually know the amount of time that we really have. So people just started realizing this stuff, and when they were forced to be able to, and people got laid off too, right? Some people just didn't even have any income for a while. And those people were forced to figure out a way to survive, and they did. And I'm not talking about, the people that just get USD airdrops from Uncle Joe up in DC, right? Or the people that just get the unemployment benefits and all that. Some people, got a side hustle and had other means of income, and they found out that they were okay. And this doesn't apply to everybody, right? This applies to a certain set of people, but the point is, people just realize that they don't have to. Maybe they don't have to be 100% dependent on a company, and maybe just maybe that their life that they live, they want it to be about them, right? It's an awful selfish thing for someone to want to live their life for them, right? I know, but instead of living a life for a company. So if you guys have ever read a book called The Sovereign Individual, there is there's a part in there that talks about how in the future, the sovereign individual ones, a job is going to be something that you do and not something that you have, right? And people don't really want to have, quote unquote, have jobs. They want to, quote unquote, do jobs, So like if you are a software engineer, you're a developer, you don't want to maybe you're doing this because it's a skill that you have, right? And you don't necessarily, maybe you're just a contractor. You just do regular freelance work. You're hopping from job to job, taking contract to contract, and you just happen to really love code. You happen to like to create things with your brain. You like to be logical, right? You're a right-brained and left-brained person. I know that's not 100% the case, but these people like that, they don't particularly want to work for a single company and just do the same thing all the time. They want to be dependent on themselves, right? Maybe they didn't want it to be dependent on themselves. Maybe that's just how the cookie crumbled. That's just how it turned out. But what I'm going to do real quick is to tell you guys kind of my story, since this is the episode number 1 or the first episode, right? Real quick, tmichael, if I work in IT, software, etc., does this give me more leverage for increasing my salary? Yeah, dude, it does. But it's only gonna do that depending on if you're working in a specific position, right? If you can code, but you're just working at a fast food restaurant, and you have no experience and you have nothing to prove that you can code, you can't just go to your boss at McDonald's and say, hey, I don't want to work in the store anymore. I want you to hook me up with a corporate job or a job at corporate where I'm programming the POS system, right? I don't think it's going to work like that. But when it comes to you being able to do things on your own terms, yeah, absolutely. So if you can code and you can get the job done, you could easily just become a freelancer, right? You could easily just literally move from wherever you want to go and work remote and take on freelance projects, or literally just build something that you want to do yourself, right? So maybe you have some sort of great idea, some sort of application or an idea for an application that people would definitely use, right? You don't need a company. If you can sell the product to people and there's a use case for it, yeah, that's definitely the case. That's definitely something that you can do. So back to my story, and I actually have someone else in here. I have a guest. So if he wants to pop in after I'm finished my story, all right, we'll let him in now. And then, yo, what's up, Fido?
Howdy.
Let me finish with this, and then I guess you can. Yeah, you got a pretty good story too. So then you can tell yours too if you want. All right, sure. So my story, guys. I went to college. I did kind of the normal thing. The first thing I did was, graduate high school, and I went to college because why? I really, honestly, I don't even know why I did that. Pretty much it was the only thing, it was the only option that I knew was available to do at the time. I didn't think that there was another option And kind of like, how society makes you think you got, be a good boy, go to school, get good grades, go to college. That's kind of like what everyone was told. So that's what I did. And, I got a computer science degree, and I thought it was a pretty good degree. Honestly, out of a lot of college degrees, there's a lot of useless ones, right? And even some of the ones that were considered to be useful probably aren't very useful anymore. But I did get a computer science degree. Did that degree necessarily teach me the skills that I have? Definitely not. I had to learn that on my own. But yeah, I got the degree, and then I got a normal job. And then after the normal job, my first job actually, as an engineer, I spent 2 years at this place. And like basically all they did in those 2 years' time was just continually give me more work. And I didn't get any more pay. I didn't get any more benefits. And one thing that I realized that I actually haven't thought about this in a while, but one thing that I realized that I used to think about a lot, actually, when I was in that first 2 years of work was, man, I just graduated college. I had the best 5 years of my life, constantly making progress, doing work, graduating. But at the same time, I was able to, if I didn't want to like go to class that day, I didn't have to. No one was going to force me. Just as long as like, my grades were good, it didn't mentally affect me. Right. I was like, that's fine. Yes, it is Fido from Telegram. I was like, yeah, it's fine. There's no problem. Right. And so it was kind of like a pretty sovereign lifestyle. You were able to, and I worked in college too. But I did have a lot more free time in college than when I graduated and I was in my first job. And I realized, even though I was getting this money for my first job, that I kind of felt like I was in like high school again. In fact, it was even worse because I actually felt like I was in fucking grade school for my first job. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, this is weird. Like, why is it that when you're in college, you have all this freedom, right? And you're considered a quote unquote adult, but then you go and then you graduate and you spend all this time and all this money, because guys, college is expensive. Everyone knows that. I mean, people rack up a boatload of debt just to go to college. You do all this stuff, and in order to what? Make your life better, right? And then you get shoved in a corporate job because now you have to pay bills, right? And then you feel like you're basically in kindergarten again. And so, yeah, I did all this work. I remember thinking like, hey, I feel like I have no freedom. Like I'm like waking up every day super early, that's not a problem. But waking up super early to go commute an hour to this place and then commute and sit an hour back in traffic, work my tail off, and have to be told that I was given a company phone, and like they would basically tell people, if you don't take this phone to the bathroom with you, we're going to think that you're like running away. Like, so yeah. No reward for it either, other than just extra work. And one thing I did is I realized that the best way to make more money in the field was to basically just job hop. It wasn't to be loyal to one company. And that was something that hit me, because and then I did this repeatedly. I job hopped several times, and my salary increased way more than my peers who had been stuck at that same job. I can guarantee that. And actually, like a sad reality for job hopping too, especially if you're like a developer and you have to go and learn new systems and stuff, is that your first 6 months on a new job, you're really not going to be doing much because you're really just learning their system. So theoretically, one could just job hop for the first like decade of their life. And so that's 10 years of working, and you're really only doing like 5 years of hard work, and you're just continually making more money, as opposed to being a good old boy and going the extra mile and doing what you're supposed to do at your corporate job and staying there and being loyal to a company who, quite frankly, doesn't give a damn about you. You're basically just a human asset, right? Where you could just job hop and make more money, right? And so, yeah, that's what I did for a bit. But then, and it's not to sound like I'm complaining, guys, but I really just wanted to make more money, because I realized that even though I was like, I think at the time it was like 2018, I was like slightly under the 6-figure per year mark for an engineer in Louisiana, and it's not bad, right? Even though that was the case, because of like taxes, basic taxes for a basic employee with a W-2 I still couldn't live the real lifestyle that I wanted to live, right? It wasn't like true freedom or what I would consider to be financial freedom. So then I realized like, well, hey, I need multiple sources of income in order to like truly live the life that I want to live. And then, I got a mentor and, that I put that to fruition, and I had a lot of other changes. So I'm glad that I did that. And around the same time, the little pandemic thing, Crab-19 happened. All right. And the company that I was currently working at, they had some instability. They had like several CEOs change and all this other stuff. And I think it was like the first or the second week of like the quote unquote lockdown that they basically just like laid off a handful of the developers. And I was only there for like, I think 9 months at the time. So I wasn't really an asset. I wasn't a human asset to this company. So I was one of the developers that had to go. And after this happened, after all these other realizations I've had so far in life, at this point, I really realized that like, hey, I can't, I was like trying hard at that place. And I did that again. I got played. I got played again by a corporation thinking that, being a good boy and doing what you're supposed to do I was gonna get rewarded for that, right? But I didn't. They didn't care about me. They didn't care about that I had bills to pay or anything, right? So at that point, I realized I could never depend on a single company again. And it seems like a lot of other people are starting to realize the same thing. A lot of millennials, actually, people our age, are starting to realize this. And I think this goes twofold. Because let's just say you take two different kinds of workers, right? You take someone who's driven and innovative and hardworking and dedicated and literally has the drive to go and do something that's meaningful and passionate to them. And, hopefully those things they do are for the betterment of society. All right. And then you have other people who just really don't care about that. They just want free money in order to pay the bills that, they don't have to work. That's where this whole great reassignment thing is coming in. A lot of people just don't want to go back to work. One, because they just never wanted to work in the first place. And maybe these people don't actually have like a huge skill set of things that they can do. Maybe they don't actually have a passion for something. And they're getting more purchasing power from USD airdrops than from, their normal jobs they had before, right? So they're not going to go back because now we have a system that's going to facilitate them to live a better lifestyle than they did before without having to work. And then you have other people, right, who actually want to make changes in the world and want to do something that's meaningful to them, right? These people, they've found ways to find income elsewhere other than just a corporate job. USD airdrops, the best kind, isn't it, Cody? So these people, a lot of me myself, I have literally worked my way into having multiple sources of income, and it's not. Trust me, guys. These multiple sources of income, I'm not like out here with like a 4-car garage with a bunch of Lamborghinis, all right? But I've definitely done pretty good for myself for someone who's 29, and I did that because I did a lot of hard work. Fido, we were talking about that this weekend. But that's where I think this great reassignment comes in. There's going to be a lot of changing that happens. How do you feel about that, Fido?
About the reassignment?
Just all of it. Like, yeah, just things changing in general, and people just that kind of quote unquote old social contract of where people think that they just need to like go and do this thing because that's the way that everyone else has done it before. And
it just kind of goes along with the laws of nature, right? Which is just to, you either adapt to it or you don't, And I was telling Sledge, one of the guys in our group, when we had some time to chat over the weekend, and I told him physically our meat space, right? The 3-dimensional realm which we live in, the meat space, right? It's almost as if we're living in 2015, right? Physically you can't really tell that much of a difference, but the shifts that have happened are not as apparent physically, because the shifts that have happened have been you could almost say that they're almost microscopic in nature, or more so the technology has gone to such levels of abstraction that we can no longer perceive it physically with, on a day-to-day basis, like you would perceive a light bulb in your room, or you would perceive a set of candles, right? So to your common person, it's almost as if we're living in 2015, with all the comforts, so on and so forth. But the reality is that the underlying technologies, all the things that we're working with now on a regular basis, those things have entirely shifted. So there's a large disparity right now with people that are essentially stuck in an old way of doing things and where we're going now. So, and does everybody know that? No, I don't think so. I think there's a great population of people that are ignorant of that, and then there's also the people that know of it, or maybe intuitively they know that something has drastically changed, but because they're in such a comfortable cocoon, they won't open the door to Pandora's box to really and fully realize that things have changed and we're not living in, it's not 2015 anymore.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I don't know if you remember when I was telling you like the last like 3 months that I was living in New Orleans, as things just started like increasingly just changing. There was like this like sentiment in the air that like, yo, something's not right, and like everyone can start to tell like, hey, something's not right. Like, something's just kind of like everyone just kind of, you can just tell people in the back of their minds can just kind of feel that all this stuff's just like hanging together by strings, right?
Yeah.
Basically it is, right? It's just hung together by strings right now.
What's the metaphor that we always laugh at is Weekend at Bernie's, right? Like we're kind of like society has become like the character from Weekend at Bernie's. Like it's pretty much done. The whatever old world existed, it's pretty much it's on its deathbed. But we kind of pretend, we put some glasses, maybe we put a fancy little like vacation Miami shirt, bring the guy around with us, maybe have some drinks, pretend like, hey, it's all good, but really things are pretty grave. And I don't mean that negatively, I mean that frankly. So
yeah, and things are going to be better for people who actually have something that they can do, right? As opposed to the latter half of the people that we saw or talked about.
Yeah.
Shane says financial survival is the basic platform to entrepreneurship and capitalism. Okay. Yeah. It's a good point, right? Because I mean, if you can't survive, then if there's no need for survival, what Shane's getting at is that there's no need for survival. There's going to be no innovation, right? There's going to be no drive for people to like, hey, like I can't just literally do nothing all day. I'll starve. I mean, if you think back in our like evolutionary past, what would happen to like caveman Bob if he just stayed in the cave and never left? Like he would literally starve to death, or he would get like clubbed to death or attacked by a tiger or something, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And along with what Shane said, and then a point that you had mentioned earlier made me think of this, where it really comes down to having a purposeful life, living a life of purpose, and it's because that will shield you through most storms, right? You could have no money in your pocket. I've been in that situation where I have no money in my pocket, but I have boatloads of purpose. I have boatloads of direction, and that will, it will shield you from most things. And even in the most dire consequences, what you'll never lack is a sense of fulfillment in your life in that regard. You always have like a sense of meaning to the things that you do. And that's what I think, people don't have, right? A lot of people don't have that. And between your Instagrams, between your Netflixes, between your Uber Eats, between all these different commodities, your USD airdrops, right? So between all that stuff, none of that's going to fill that gap for them, right? And so what are they left? They're kind of left in kind of this like festering cesspool of emotions, of negativity. And it's self-destructive in nature. And I do think I've kind of derived away from your original point, though. So I'll digress there.
Nah, man. No, you're totally on spot. Cody Mouse, people are starting to realize things are about to change, but they don't know what to do about it. They finally are starting to see that the world they were raised for doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, dude, good point. Because it doesn't exist anymore at all. Like everything that we were, as cheesy as it is, everything we were told is basically a lie. Let's talk about financial system, for example. Like it's all just basically just a bunch of lies, right? They have all these kind of like basically the banks are in control, the central banks, and they have all these rules and regulations for all these normal people, which is one reason why like people don't know. If you're just a W-2 employee, like, dude, even if you're making like $250K a year, like if you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a high paid engineer, you're still not gonna be able to live like that lifestyle that was advertised to you, that we were advertised to through like social media and media in general, right? And look, there's nothing. Look, if one of your goals in life is to have an exotic luxury car, like that's not like a bad goal to have, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that per se, but if you're going to have that as a goal, you better be able to have a lifestyle that can facilitate something that costs so much money, right? And hopefully, and pay all your other bills on top of it too, right? And we're just told that we can have basically whatever we want if we just, go to college, get a job, take out a mortgage for a house, right? I was watching this like Dave Ramsey episode. Dude, that Dave Ramsey dude's a fucking hypocrite, dude. He tells people to get out of debt, and he preaches all this debt-free stuff. But the dude uses leverage for all of his rental properties, right? He uses leverage for all his rental properties, and that's what you should do. He's using debt to make more fucking money. It's because it sounds counterproductive, people, but it's actually what you're supposed to do is use debt to make you more money because of the way that our financial system is done and set up. Like one of the best ways to generate money is to use debt and leverage to make more money. And that's what he does. And instead of preaching to all of his followers, like, or teaching them how to do that, he's just doing like this debt-free, blah, 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 blah. And I don't know, maybe because he makes money off of like this whole like facade that he has, but like, he's not helping anybody. He's not helping anybody, but lying to them and telling them that like he's doing this, he's doing this stuff, but they shouldn't, right? Because those are just normal poor people, right, Vito? They shouldn't have that knowledge and that ability to financially better themselves. People don't know. People don't know they do stuff like that. Michael, tmichael, how did I find my mentor? It's a good question. It's a long story too, but my mentor was and still is Jonathan MLD. People in here know him. He's a good friend of mine too. But man, I found him from YouTube. I found someone had referred to me a book of a different content creator. So I read the book, and then I found the content creator stuff on YouTube, and then they were doing live streams together. So then I found John, and I was like, that dude's hilarious. And then I started watching his stuff, and then one day I just DM'd him, and that was it. Babe Honker says lives in a shed but owns a Lambo. Yeah, they're Lambo rich, or Lambo poor, I guess you could say. Christian Cardina says having actual skill is super important. Electrical, HVAC, healthcare, software development. Yeah, 100%. Because if you're just being a pencil pusher, and it's an awful term, but like, what can you do if shit goes down? Like, how are you going to help society? And I get, the thing is too, these people probably have an actual skill of something that they're passionate about. Maybe not all of them, but some of these people actually do probably have a skill that if they actually tried really hard off of, they can make enough money to at least be the exact same place they're at currently without having to depend on some stupid corporation to help them out, right? Babe Honker, utility services are always needed. Great point, Chris. Yeah, very, very great point. Yeah, so like, for example, one of the things that like a lot of my peers have been doing is, they're getting married, and they're taking out a regular 30-year mortgage to pay off, to just get some, white picket fence house. And look, there's nothing wrong with doing that. That's what you want to do. But when I thought that was the only thing that you could do back in the day, I wasn't super ecstatic about it. Right. I just thought that was just like what I was supposed to do. But then when I realized there's other options, right. I was like, holy shit. Like the world just opened up to me. I didn't do that. I took a huge risk. For my first house, I bought a duplex basically in the center of downtown New Orleans, not the nicest neighborhood ever. And I rented out one side and I lived in the other, so I could generate enough money to pay down the mortgage enough to save up enough money so where I could leave or go into something better. And actually, I started this whole process before the whole Crab 19. I don't even know if I should call it like a PANDEMIC anymore, because YouTube probably doesn't like that. But before that whole thing started, my plan was to just, live in that one for a year and then go get another duplex in a better neighborhood and just repeat that process a couple of times. And I would have several rental properties, right? What had actually happened was, I was like, I don't like the city anymore. It's bad. I'm leaving. And I moved to Miami and I just rented out both sides of that duplex. And it was tough. Like living like in a super offer neighborhood where people like would literally come and steal your shit all the time. Where there was like gunshots outside, just so that I could like better myself. It was tough dealing with my tenant too. And still to this day, I'm dealing with tenants that always causing problems. Rental properties are always causing problems, but I didn't choose to do the normal thing that other people did. Right. I did something that, I was going to do for extra work to better myself financially. Right. And most people would never do that because, you should never, like, I've always thought about, I had so many people tell me like, I've always thought about getting that whole duplex thing and renting out one side. I just never got around to doing it. Yeah. Well, I mean, no, you know why you didn't? Because it was too much for you. And dude, I've talked to you about it a lot. It was a lot, dude, especially with that one guy that I had. But that being said, yeah, I took a mortgage out and I used debt to buy me an income generating property so that when I left it, it would generate me income. All right. I didn't want to be tied to this thing. And now I'm thinking about getting rid of it soon. So like that'll be on. But like a lot of people don't realize there's all these things that you can do that are different from, at least in regards to the financial system too. They're different from what you're told you can do. Right.
Yeah. And I think what you mentioned, it reminds me a lot of, I know there's probably a lot of people in the audience that have already read this book, but if you haven't, I do recommend it. Unscripted. I think it's MJ DeMarco is the guy that wrote it. And one of the things that you said reminded me of that book, where it's like the white picket fence scenario is essentially not those people's actual dreams, right? Like that's kind of the market. That's kind of the marketed dream. That's kind of essentially implanted in you as a default, so that everybody thinks that, oh, this is like what you're supposed to do, right? Like because everything in my life has always told me that I should be going this direction. And I think a lot of the times why it's such a rude awakening when you realize that you actually have the free. Well, here, we're on the Project Freedom podcast, and I think this is something that will be poignant to what we're discussing, is that a delineating factor in a person's life is when they realize, oh wait, I'm actually in the driver's seat of this. You know what I'm saying? Like I actually get to decide what I want to do, what efforts are, how I want to spend my time, all those things. And to a lot of people, that's actually a very scary thought. It's very similar to like how you said about like, your duplex. It's like a lot of people want to do that, but a lot of people don't do that. Why? Because that's going to require them to be in the driver's seat for that full experience. And a lot of times, why would there be any fear at all regarding that matter, right? Why would there be any fear about moving across the country to somewhere you've never been, or moving to another country? All those things. Why is that the fear? It's because there's consequences to those decisions, right? And why? Well, that's reality. That's the reality that we live in, is that the decisions that we make have consequences. And a lot of people cannot, like you said, it's challenging, and a lot of people cannot bear those consequences. But the thing is, and this is something that has kind of been lost, I think, in modernity with human beings, is that, well, we actually grow from dealing with those consequences, right? We whether in our successes, I don't call them losses anymore, right? I call them lessons, right? But in our successes and in our failures, right? No matter what, you always end up winning when you don't hold the big chip at the end of the race. You learn from your mistakes, and you learn, you essentially regroup your strategy, and then you go at it again. You'll never lose. You'll never lose, right? But there's so much fear to failure that ends up just stunting people. And I think even if you have that default programming, that white picket fence programming, if you will, I think intuitively people know that there's something more out there, but the fear will keep people just stuck in one gear the entire time, right? So all that to be said is that when the individual takes the time to say, okay, well, here's a barrier of fear that I have. All right, well, I'm going to just grit my teeth and then just keep walking through this barrier. what they end up realizing at the other end is that they're most of the time they'll probably still be alive. And then what ends up coming from that, whatever struggles they went through, the highs, the lows, they actually get a more evolved version of themselves, right? Because they've actually gotten their butt kicked a little bit. You know, they got their elbows scraped, they've got some scar tissue now, and now they have something to talk about. But now they're actually, and now their character is more of a I would say more battle worn, and I think that's probably more important for men than anything, right? Is for us to go through that. And but again, I guess I start to digress. So if you want to put this back on the rails here, but yeah, I think it's an interesting point nonetheless. So
no, I agree, man. Good points. Cody Mouse, that's my plan too. Housing market in Texas is crazy right now, though. I feel like there's another real estate crash on the way soon. Houses are going to 46% overvalued. Yeah, very true, man. Cody, actually, that's why I'm actually listing my house for sale like next week, and I'm getting out because like I'm way up on that house, and I never intended to keep that house long term anyway. BlackRock, which is basically BlackRock's like the Federal Reserve's like right hand like legal entity. It's like a low key kind of thing, but they're buying up houses like over 20 to 50%. They're buying up residential houses 20 to 50% over a listing value, like all over the place. And they're like buying up like entire neighborhoods. So I don't know, Cody. I don't know if a crash is going to come, or if, look, I wouldn't be surprised if a crash happens, because like mathematically speaking, all they would have to do to crash the housing market is like raise the interest rates like 0.5%, right? Or in the like mortgage, or not the mortgage, the rent moratorium, whatever. Basically, with the thing where nobody can, if you really want to like kick a tenant out, you can't, for not payment at least, right? You have to find another reason to kick them out other than just they don't pay. So like that gets stopped. The market could crash, right? But yeah, if things are, a lot of these houses are way overvalued right now. I agree with that. And I imagine DR makes more money doing what he does. If you ran the positions that DR keeps pushing, then you'd see the truth. It wasn't flattering when I ran those numbers 10 plus years ago. I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. If you want to clarify, let me know. But I think you're saying that that you thought that being a doctor would make more money than what you were told, and then when you found out the numbers, you realize it wasn't. Yeah, and look, another thing too, it's like if you go to med school, unless you got a family that can afford to pay it for you, in that case, definitely do it. But you go to med school on your own, man, it's like what, like 150, 300K debt. So like, when would you be able to actualize that? Like, I think a doctor is like, Dave Ramsey. Okay. So you said, I imagine Dave Ramsey. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll reread that again. All right. So I imagine Dave Ramsey makes more money doing what he does. If you ran the positions that Dave Ramsey keeps pushing, then you'd see the truth. It wasn't flattering or anything. Okay. Yeah. Dave Ramsey's just a fucking hypocrite, dude. And he's also just dumb. Like, I'm not even sure. Like, I hate to overuse the term boomer, but the dude's such a boomer. Yeah. He's Sam Tracy. Where were we? Yeah. On the doctor thing too. Like, if you do that, that's like a conventional route. Look, I live in Miami Beach right now. And there's like a bunch of stuff that locals post on like their Reddit, because I've checked it out a few times to try to like get a good like sentiment of what life's like down here. This place is like, shout out Antonio. What's up, my dude? This place is like, South Beach is not like, it's not like the real world. It's like fantasy world over here. And the truth is, most of these people here are actually sovereign individuals, be it by legal means or non-legal means, because there's a lot of people that do things here that like are either illegal or just non-conventional for like their money. But like, I know one guy here, he owns a car rental, or it's really like a limousine rental company, but it's like a party bus limousine thing. And the dude like works like 3 or 4 nights out of a month and makes like, a couple grand, and it's enough to like pay for his nice condo here and to get for food and everything else. And then the rest of the month he doesn't have to work, because like, He's got his own thing going on. So like the people here are pretty like sovereign, right? But the ones here who aren't sovereign, and I'm talking about like people who have good jobs, doctors, lawyers, young professionals, they'll stay here until they get to the age where, you know, like they want to start a family or something, and they got to split, because at that point, like even just one basic 2-bedroom house, like in like North Miami Beach in a residential area, is like 800, 900K, like over 1 million now. Cause like, you know, the whole like housing inflation thing, but, they can stay in the condos before then, but then when they want to have a family or more room, they leave, because like they can't afford it, even though they're working, you know, getting jobs that pay them $250K a year. Right. So, you know, thing about W-2 employees, like you get most of your money taken from you from Uncle Sam. Right. And that's one thing we're not taught. We weren't taught anything about like taxes or any of that stuff in school. How basically like entrepreneurship is like the number one way to make the number one way to make more money is to save money on taxes. There's a book out there by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And there's also a book by Rich Dad Advisors called Tax Free Wealth. That book, both those two books will if you guys want to read those, they're good books that do a lot of explaining of things that like no one in the real world would tell you. So if you're an engineer and you're making like $95K a year on like a W-2, and you're an entrepreneur and you're making 45, 50K, maybe 60K, depending on how good the year went for you. You're basically making like almost identical income. In fact, there's some cases where that entrepreneur could probably take home more in the end, because they don't have to pay as much taxes, because they can write things off. You can actually, you can use that money to actually purchase you assets that can maybe generate you more money, or you can use that money, put it back into your business and use it for things to generate you more money, as opposed to the W-2, the engineer or the lawyer or the doctor, right? They get that taken from out of their W-2 paycheck, right? And like, they can't do anything about it. So a lot of these things we're not told about. And the fact that I can afford a Lambo right now scares me and takes some getting used to for a middle-class dude. Still can't believe it. Yeah. That dude owns crypto for sure. Christian, if you want to be a doctor, you would almost be better going to school overseas. A buddy of mine is doing that way cheaper. Yeah, good point, man. Another thing that's not conventional, right, is to go to school overseas. One of my friend's older brothers actually did that, and I think it saved them a lot of money. Babe Honker, 35% in Canada. I think I know who Babe Honker is. Yeah, that's like way too much money, dude. Antonio, love that book. Cody Mouse, dude, Zarate makes 20K more than me on paper and ends up making less than 4K more than me a year in taxes. He was pissed. Yeah, man. Antonio, some states also have state taxes. Yeah, most states also have state taxes, right? You got anything you want to say about Fido? Well, one more thing. Shout out to Robert Kiyosaki for getting RP recently. Yeah, I saw that. I didn't get to meet him, but some people I was hanging out with this weekend got to go meet him, and it was pretty cool. What do you think about? Let's talk about before we call it quits tonight. Let's talk about the financial part of it. So one thing, and I've like kind of like low key like shortly told my brief story of life, and what I have done in my pursuit to sovereign individualism. But I'll say this: my end goal 100% is to be 100% non-dependent on a corporate entity to pay my bills, right? So I don't have to like have the corporation paying for my food, right? I want to be 100% independent of a bank or a banking system. I don't want to have to like be able to take out a loan from a bank unless I'm going to be doing that to where it's going to generate me income, right? I don't want to have to like go into a bank branch and be like, hey, I want my money out in cash. Could you please make it really problematic for me to do that? And I also want to be able to go wherever I want on a whim's notice, right? So the financial part of that, like we just talked about Mr. Anup V over here with the Lambo money. That's why, dude, like, and a lot of people don't even know like how many benefits there are of this kind of like shadow financial realm that's going on, that's like slowly eating up the current financial system. And I was going to ask you, like, how we already know that you mentioned it before, the weekend at Bernie's thing. Our current financial system is kind of just like it's running off of it's hungover and it's running off of Bloody Marys. And as soon as it stops drinking that Bloody Marys, it's just going to die if it isn't already dead. How many people do you think know that there's other ways to do things financially other than the current system you have? And in the next years, the next 365 days, how many people do you think are going to start either realizing more that this is the case, and how many of those people do you think are going to start taking action towards that?
I mean, I would say it's going to be a very small percentage. I'd definitely say it's going to be a very small percentage that end up doing so, just because they're not really incentivized to do so. I mean, I think they're kind of going to get spoon-fed, you know? So there's not really going to be a reason for them to want to, yo, what's up, man? There's not really going to be a reason for them to do so. So it's unfortunate, but that's just going to be the case. As always, you know, usually the people that end up taking action tend to be the smallest minority. They're going to have some reason, like somebody like dies or some shit, like to really like put a burner under them to be like, all right, I have to figure this out. That's the only, that's the turning point, right? Is when like you have something happen to you or you realize, oh my gosh, like I only have X amount of time left. I got to make this happen or else it's not going to happen. Those are the kind of scenarios that will put a fire underneath somebody. But I was actually thinking about this today. It's very interesting that you asked me that. I was thinking about it and I was like, you know what? Some people have it and some people don't have it. And there's nothing I can do about that. Like, you know, is it just like, just thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, well, and you can't engineer it out of somebody. Somebody needs to want to have that hunger to want to, you know, get out of that situation. Because, for example, in 2020, and stop me if I start to ramble here, but in 2020, if you would have told me, Al, you can go, or you know, Fire, you could go and learn to code by yourself on the internet. You're not going to, you don't need to go to a boot camp. You don't need to go to a 4-year degree. I would have said, well, that's kind of crazy. But then so that's my story. As I started to dig into the internet, I started to realize, well, everything that I need to learn to become a software engineer is already in front of me. All that it's going to require is just a lot of time and about, you know, maybe $1,500 for a nice, you know, a nice laptop. Mm-hmm. And then that's it. And then the rest is just going to be sweat equity. So that's also crazy because that made me realize, well, we really are in a very opportune time where things that were once, you know, guarded by gatekeepers are no longer there. Those barriers are no longer there. So we're kind of in an interesting paradox where the barriers for success have been extremely lowered. All of a sudden, anybody could be a player in this game. Yeah. But the interest in doing so has waned. So it's like there's the goalies that used to protect those access points to success have pretty much flopped over, but nobody's interested in shooting the ball to score the goal anymore, you know, at least in a majority, as a majority, right? I mean, I think we know a lot of individuals who are interested in that, but within our communities. But if outside of that realm, I would say most people just don't give a crap, dude. But it's also because, I mean, a lot of people have a mind bug, right? And that mind bug says, well, I'm going to be poor forever, or the man, it's impossible. It's impossible, or that's just not me, or I'm not smart enough, or I don't see anybody, and I don't blame them. I mean, some people, if their environment, they wake up, they see garbage, like their neighborhood's garbage, their family's garbage, everybody around them's poor. Of course, that's the reality. That's their feedback loop, right? So, I mean, I digress again, but it does start here. But aside from that, if you want to look at reality for what it is, the opportunities have never been greater than even now with everything that we've gone through. You know, we talk about crypto, you know, the opportune time that we've been in this market as well. You know what I'm saying? There's these huge opportunities everywhere. And then it's just that mindset keeps people with their head down, just, oh, poor me, same thing, you know, and never really like it, you know, completely devoid of the fact that, wow, we live, like, what a time to be alive, right? Like, this is a great time to take advantage, right? So,
man, there's so much opportunity going on right now. Oh, Michael, tmichael, how would you artificially create drive? Memento mori, man. When you wake up, literally remember that you're going to die one day. And once that happens, it's all over, right?
Yep.
Regardless what you believe, where you're at here in this meat suit in this 3-dimensional realm, it's over, buddy. So like, if that doesn't light a fire underneath you, then like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Like that's like the main thing. I know you feel the same, fight. That's the main thing that keeps me like, like crap. I'm 29. Like, how much time do I have left? I should be doing this. And you know what else too? Not the fact that you just die, but like, who wants to be like 70 years old driving a Lambo? You want to drive that Lambo, dude. You want to do it when you're young, right? You want to do it when you're good looking, when your brain still works, when you don't have like Alzheimer's, right? Who wants to be 75 years old and like,
and you forget where you parked
Bahamas?
And right. And then you forget where you parked your Lambo.
Yeah, you forgot where you parked the Lambo, and then it's just gone, right? Antonio, get out of your comfort zone. Agreed. It's easy to work a comfortable paying job and just go home and chill. Yeah, it's easy, dude. It's easy too, right? And like, I've also too, I go through like cycles back and forth where I'm like, all right, I've done a lot of work. I'm literally burnt out from 6 months of work. I'm gonna like, I'm just gonna do the bare minimum to get by for like a month or two, right? And then as soon as that happens, I just start getting this like itch. I'm like, I'm not doing enough. I got to do more, right? Fido, you know what? You and me talked about this this weekend when you were over here. It's kind of like some people would consider this like whole self-improvement thing like a disease, right? Like a mental disease. And then I had ended that, and I said, however, there's people who have the exact opposite, quote unquote, mental disease. And if you're out of the two, what would you prefer? Would you prefer to have a mental disease that, propels you and forces you to do work, right? Or would you rather have the mental disease that does the opposite? It's just self-destructive, right?
Yeah. You make a really good point there, because that's another distinguishing factor that I thought about before too, which is, well, regardless, I'm going to suffer. Like this is going to be, there's going to be ups and downs regardless. So it's like, do I decide to suffer, kind of whimpering like, oh, like life, stop like beating me, or do I like kind of decide to fight with it? Not in a, like a, I'm like, fuck the world kind of idea, but more so of like, like, do I decide to be an active player in the intensity of life is the difference. And one of the things that you alluded to, the memento mori there, that's very key. It's easy to forget, obviously, because people go through, we go through our daily routines and whatnot, but I conceptualize only living a certain amount of time, not for the morbidity of it, but saying, okay, well, say I actually only have today to live, right? This is like a good thought exercise to be like, okay, well, say I only have the next 24 hours to live, or say the next 3 days to live. Well, how would I act? How would, who would I talk to? What connections would I make? What conversations would I do? Would I go and talk to that girl? Would I spend some time working? And how would my attitude be? Would I be happy? Would I be negative? And that's a really good way to think about it, and a really good parameter. And then another one is, if you say, okay, if I die right now, how at peace would I be with my own death? Right. Mm-hmm. And if you ask yourself that question, and then you see in yourself that, there's like some discomfort for these things that I wish I could have done, or these things that I wish I could have told that one person, or all these things that all these accomplishments that I wanted to get, but I didn't. And it's going to hurt me if I die right now and not being able to do that. That's a good one, because if you can sit down and say, all right, well, even if I haven't accomplished the highest of my goals, but I was on the direction to it, and I was relentless in the pursuit towards that, which I so authentically desire inside of me, then you could almost peacefully die at any moment, because you were living the best that you could with the amount of things that you could control. And then everything outside of that is, that's outside of your realm of your sphere of influence. So you say, okay, well, if I get ran over by a bus, cool. I can't control that. I can control the direction that I was going in my life and my commitment to my goals and my, the things that I love and that I value. And if that's the case, then that means that when I die, I'm going to die peacefully. Right. So that's really kind of another one, but
yeah. Oh, Michael, tmichael, do you offer mentorship? Yes, I do. Go to this website here. Actually, take the ticker off. Go to this one, or this one, depending on what you want. And speaking of mentorship, Fido, you were like my first client, and back when you were working as a bar back in California. Or were you working at a restaurant, or was it a bar back?
Bar back, yeah. But I mean, I jumped around all over the industry. But yeah, when we met, I was working as a bar back.
Yeah, dude, you've done a lot too since then. So Chain, be hard on yourself, take yourself seriously, and respect your work, respect your word more than anything. Yeah, you have to be hard on yourself. What's one thing that Jonathan MLD always says? Decrease the judgment of others and increase the judgment of yourself, right? And like we should all just be constantly judging, like, hey, like, is this good enough? Is this good enough? Do I do I look good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I able to do this efficiently enough? And if not, I'm going to go and cry about it. No, how am I going to make this better? How am I going to what's the plan from here? Like, what can I do? What steps can I take that are actionable to make these things better, right? To make my faults and my flaws better. Shane Minger, slap a business name in the car tag in the Lamborghini and write off as depreciation as a business expense. Yeah, exactly. 100%. Or you could lease it. And I think depending on what, I don't think you can do this with an S corp, but I think if you just have a regular LLC, like you can lease a car, and that you can 60% of it, you can write that off. Dude, good point. Dude, that's on point. I just got into IT less than a year ago, and I already have that itch for the next step. Yep. And IT is a very sovereign, freeing field. We didn't do a lot of. We're gonna have to talk another time about your story, Fido. But you're pretty sovereign. You're a pretty sovereign individual. You're out there living in Vegas, being the least degenerate person out there, being a digital nomad. Also, Chain, great to tune in on your first episode. Much success, and may the crypto gods be with you guys. I hope the crypto gods are indeed with us. Matt W. And buy assets, not short-term liabilities. Agreed.
Longevity.
Also, Chain says, "What's up to you, dude? Most base programmers are out there. Thank you."
Hey,
yeah. Fido has come a long way. You have come a long way, dude.
Thanks, man. Thanks, babe.
I'm sure you got a lot more you want to go and do, right?
Yeah, so much more. I compete with what Cody just said there. Same deal, man. I got the programming job. I became an engineer, and I'm just like, what's next? It hit me. To me, I pretty much ran into an existential crisis the week after I got it.
I told you too. I told you.
Oh man, it was. I'll go so far to say that was pretty rough as well, just because just what comes with working so hard for something, getting it, and then just, I wouldn't say disillusion is the right word, but you are kind of left in the state of oh, so what do I do now?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's pretty crazy, but yeah, no, and definitely kudos to Josh's mentorship as well. I mean, pretty much for the past few years, all we've been doing is fortifying my mindset, right? So if the mind is not on point, then nothing else follows through, and I'm very, very grateful for that at this point. But yeah, it's all part of same thing, is that aspiration for more freedom. When I was stuck bar backing, when I was working in those restaurants, I hated it, man. I hated having, I told Josh this when we met up over the weekend. When I was bar backing, I remember I'd be really mad because they would be skipping out on my pay for that job. But I'd always be the scrapper in that job. I do all the dirty work, anything that needed to get done to get the shift over and help people out, I would do it. So I would do all the stuff that people didn't want to do. So I'd be taking out the trash, picking up broken glass bottles, all this stuff, working behind the bar, all this crazy stuff. And I remember at the end of every night, I would be one of the last people to leave the bar, and I'd just be taking out the trash, and my clothes would be all dirty. And at the time, I was already coding, and there was just this sense of this needs to change. I can't keep doing this, and I remember I'd throw out the trash and just think to myself, it's I'm better than this. I can do more. I can do more. And it was that thought of I can do more. And then that thought then evolved to I am more. And then that thought evolved to I am this thing that I'm trying to be, yeah, so it is possible. It is possible, but the battle is fought here. And then once you start winning the battles in here, then the rest, your life just starts to become a reflection of what you are on the inside, right? So that's all I got to say. Yeah. So big kudos to eLift program and developer direction.
for getting me on that path. Completely self-taught. I mean, insofar as I know, I'm the only self-taught guy that I've ran into, and not just in our community, but in like there's not a lot of us. So it's possible. It is possible. So if any of you guys are interested in going down that direction, I think developer direction, eLive program, hit us up. Like we love helping guys out, and it's not going to be easy. It's never easy, but we have the tools to like get you guys there for sure.
Indeed. Cody Mouse, IT is my vehicle to the top of the Citadel. Yeah, that extra money, that extra good money for dry powder. Oh, tmichael, do you have imposter syndrome? I did. Look, everyone always like is going to have imposter syndrome in the beginning. Right? Like I had a very good engineering degree from a very good school, and like the first year and a half, 2 years in the job, I was like, am I even good enough to be doing this? But I just eventually learned so much that like once you start and I don't know if you're talking about with life in general or just like, I don't know, being an engineer or something. Once you start like doing things, especially when you do things on your own, like outside of like working for a corporation that you're only doing this code because you want to get paid for it. Once you start doing things on your own and you get fulfillment and enjoyment out of it, and you do this, you have this thing where it's like you have something that you're technical that you're trying to get past. You don't know how to do it, right? You don't know how to do it, and you literally just use your tools at your disposal, i.e., people and the internet, and then you apply what you're researching, and you fix something, and you finish it. It's like you get this high of like you get this rush dopamine, like I did that. And then once you start pulling off those all the time, you don't feel like an imposter anymore. And it's the same thing with like, with everything. Like when I used to be a competitive bodybuilder, I felt like an imposter when I was getting ready for that first show that I did. And then finally, when I got on stage and I got first place in my first show, not to brag, it was a novice show, guys, but I will toot my own horn here. After I did that, I was like, hey, I'm not an imposter anymore. But I remember the 6 months I spent like prepping for that show, like looking at myself in the mirror, thinking like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to like even belong up there next to those other people. They're way better than me, right? Or like they know way more than me, right? That surely I'm not going to do good enough. But once you do anything in life so many times, like at least even just once, you pull it off on your own, and in your heart of hearts, deep inside that your hands were on the wheel that whole time. It was you that drove and you that did it. Like you're not going to feel like an imposter anymore. But the key to doing that is to put your hands on the wheel and drive, right? Like you can't just like sit on the sidelines and just watch other people drive and then just think, okay, if I just observe enough, if I just do enough observation and do enough reading, then, and do enough research, then, I'll be able to become an expert in whatever kind of like craft that you're trying to achieve mastery in. You have to actually do it, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's like incompetent your peers or that imposter syndrome goes away real quick. Yeah, dude, that's so true. That's a good point, Cody. And then that's one. And then the other one too, like Josh said, is like, yeah, if you get like a task where that like, all right, I can't just pull some dude off the street to complete this task. And then you follow through on that task to its like finality. And then after it, you like send it away and you're like, holy crap, like that was some professional grade stuff. I think after that moment, like things, just like that imposter syndrome goes away. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, hold on, I think I got some talent. But it takes, initially you do, but yeah, once you get put under the gun pretty much, and it's like, hey, look, perform or it's not going to work for you kind of deal. That's when you start to really dig in and you're like, all right, well, like, what am I really about? And then after you come out with a win from a pressure situation like that, it's just like, you can pretty much get thrown anything. And at that point, you're just not going to, it's not going to phase you as much, at least. Right. So yeah, no, Josh is absolutely right. And then the competency one too. Yeah. After a while, you start to realize like in certain rooms, you're like the only guy that knows what's going on. So that one helps too. But yeah.
Speaking of that, Christian says, how often do you run into stupidity, extreme laziness, and reckless behavior of your peers in programming? A lot. Although I'm sure some people would think the same about me. The thing about developers and engineers, me and Fido have a term for them. We call them soy devs, but You got to understand about engineers, especially software engineers. They think that they're God's gift to earth. Now, I'm not excluding myself because there's definitely times where like I'm 100% right about something and I know I'm right, and I won't let anybody or I'll just be so convinced of it that even if Jesus came from the sky himself and was like, "Hey, you're wrong," I'll still be like, "Nah, dude, I'm right." But almost all software engineers, they think that they're like the smartest. They basically think that their farts don't stink, right? So even if you can like prove them wrong on something, they're not gonna they won't admit to it. As far as extreme laziness, I mean, yeah, like a lot of people, like if you deal with like people, if you have to work on a team with people, people sometimes can like not answer emails or like want to coordinate with you, and it's hard to do that when you're like, you live like 800 miles away from them, cutting mouse every single day. Christian, I feel like I'm not smart. I feel like I'm not smart, but I make up for it with work ethic and common sense. So maybe I'd have a shot at programming. Fido, we were literally talking about this on the phone last night, right?
Right.
The level of IQ that people think that they need to just do basic programming is not as high as high as people actually think it is. There's a couple of reasons for that. Maybe in like the 1970s when people were like, writing COBOL and Fortran on like punch cards, and like they had to like literally memorize all these massive amounts of things inside their head. And they had to go grab, they got an error from a punch card. They had to go run down to the local library and like figure out take the error code and hope that the book had some sort of like answer for what you were looking for. Guys, we're like, as far as programming goes, like developers, here's one thing about developers and software engineers. They're lazy in the sense that they like to write the least amount of code as they possibly can to get the job done, right? And thus, basically, software engineers, software developers have wrote software that makes writing software easier. So like, there's a bunch of things that if we had to do now, like if we had to do it by hand from scratch now, like, dude, I would be fucked. I mean, dude, would you be able to like, I don't know, what's one, I mean, let's just think about something like as basic as like window.alert from the JavaScript standard library. Like, dude, if you had to write that from scratch, that would suck so much. It would probably take me like 3 years to do. Right?
So yeah, 100%. Even like basic stuff, like for example, how should a form tag be constructed so that it works effectively when you implement it, which is just like a basic HTML. I was actually doing that yesterday with some of the students. I forgot how to do that. Mid class, I forgot how to do that, and I had to get another one of the engineers to help me look up how to do it. And of course, you look it up, you're like, oh, okay, cool, I remember that, and then you just plug it in and it works. But no, yeah, for sure. And yeah, to your other point, yeah, absolutely. No, if you tell me, hey, look, whip something out of scratch in Magic, I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know where you're at. I don't know even where to start. So if I have, luckily, we have things called Google. Google's very handy. W3 Schools, what are the Stack Overflow? That's another really good one. So yeah, so the accessibility to the information that you need to solve a particular problem, the time that lapses between you asking the question and getting an answer back for that particular question has shrunk completely, right? Because it's all at your fingertips. So what does that mean? Is that engineers, all we're doing really all day is just Google searching things until we get the answer, the specific answer that we want. And then we plug it into whatever problem we're trying to solve. Like there's no magic to it really. And that's the funny thing. But that's really the process. I mean,
yeah,
I hate to unveil it for everybody, but
yeah, no, agreed. Christian, and one thing that's always tell people that'll contact me. They want to like just get a better job where they can work from home or work wherever, and they just start thinking about wanting to get into programming. Is that you don't like it's not the thing that you need to like hone and craft the most is your problem solving and your troubleshooting abilities. Like if you can problem solve and troubleshoot and use resources at your disposal, like the internet or people, and you're not afraid to be like, oh, I don't want to start like trying to figure this out. And you can go from point A to point B. That's all that's really required. You don't really need to be smart. I mean, and plus another thing too is like being smart is hard to measure from person to person. Albert Einstein has a quote: "If you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, then it will live its whole life thinking that it is stupid." Right? Let's see. Shane Menger, flying jets do it for me. No one can say I can't because I'm the captain. Take pride in your accomplishments. No one can take that away from you. Yeah, for sure, man. 100% agree. Common sense has gotten me farther than book smarts in life. If you've got common sense and drive, you can learn anything book smarts dudes know. Yeah, for sure. 100%. And I once had a senior manager at a big name investment firm tell me, hey, no one really knows how to build this thing, but we're betting on you to figure it out. That sounds about right. I can guarantee whatever code issue you're having has already been solved somewhere else. Yeah, 100%. Like if you just go take a peek at like Stack Overflow, that's the same question that you have to ask for something is probably asked like already 100 times, if not even more.
Now, one of the things that I wanted to add on that I don't think is very fun, like is not fun for new people coming into code, is that people tend to be kind of, what's the word? Like, I'm trying not to say a bad word, but people tend to be kind of guarded about answering questions, you know? So there's a big tendency for like people to not have the patience for noob questions. And that's just like something that like people have to get over. I know it's very annoying because I do think that that's actually one of the problems with the field is that the way that people ask questions, it may seem like a basic question to the engineer, the more experienced engineer, but what a lot of people fail to do with the kind of that soy def pompousness is that they fail to realize that, look, it's not that the person isn't smart. It's that you're bad at communicating your response as well to their question, right? Like there's not enough social calibration to the way that the answer is being delivered to the person. So there's a confusion that kind of alludes to what the Albert Einstein, the sentence that you mentioned from Albert Einstein, which is, it's not that the person isn't smart. It's that the way that the answer is being communicated to them is not being calibrated to how they can receive it. So a lot of times it'll just go over their head because it just sounds, the vocabulary terms are just they're too out of whack for them, right? But if you say, okay, well, what we're really trying to do is we're really just trying to get from point A to point B, and you're going to hear a bunch of garbage and jargon in between that's going to make it sound like it's more complicated than that. But just remember, all we're trying to do is get from point A to point B. You know what I'm saying? And if you can kind of remind them that, I've realized that actually it implants what they really need, which is the concept of what you're trying to accomplish, and then takes away all the unnecessary abstraction. You know what I'm saying? Which is necessary once you start getting into the code and you really start getting into the nitty gritty. But if there's like a failure to understand the concept as it works as a whole before you start digging into the layers of abstraction, then there will be then that individual will have a very hard time grasping the information. So a lot of times from the teacher's perspective, I notice it's a lot about, okay, like, who am I talking to and how can I explain this in a way that they can understand it, right? And that's a very effective strategy for teaching, and that I do notice the market is missing a lot. And so
yeah, I agree. It's like the same thing as like if someone comes and like asks, like if a 3-year-old child asks you like how do you like do something that's extremely juvenile or rudimentary to you, it's just kind of like a nuisance, right? But yeah, man, like also programming, software engineering, development, it's cool and all because it opens up a lot of doors for a lot of people, and it's more of a path of sovereign individuality. It is a path of sovereign individuality, but it's not for everybody, right? There's other things in IT too that don't require you to code, and that can give you that same sort of like the same pay and the same benefit, right? Honestly, guys, like I don't enjoy coding for like, at least when I was doing the whole corporate thing, or if I am doing something for like a corporate place, I don't enjoy like doing that code. I fucking hate it, actually. The only code I like doing is something for myself, right? And like I wouldn't imagine, if I had like being a person with like multiple streams of income, I wouldn't imagine that I would be like hurting to like want to go get some code done for pay. If I'm doing code, it's probably going to be for something that I enjoy to do and something that I want to do, right? Giga Chad. I think I know who this is too. Einstein's brain was ironically found to be actually smaller than average. That's funny, man. I think actually Einstein wasn't actually the person who actually said that quote, so I'm not sure. But that's funny. Cody Mouse. To add on to that, do your own research and ask legit questions. Don't be lazy. Then a 5-second Google search pulls up the answer. Yeah, 100%
That's
true.
right.
That
That's
too.
right. That's right.
What your question takes more than 100 ms to answer. You sick fuck, how dare you? Yeah. But yeah, man, we're at an hour and 20 now, and that's a lot. I wanted to stay to the hour mark, but we just kind of kept going, and it was a good flow. I don't really have anything else to say. But I guess I need to hear, like, basically this whole podcast, we're not going to do the same thing every single time, but guys, what I want this podcast to be is just about the pursuit to freedom for what you want to be and how you want to live in life. Right. I'm a quote unquote, I hate this term too, but I'm a quote unquote libertarian in the sense that, like, look, I think freedom, I put freedom over anything, just as long as that thing that you're doing isn't going to negatively impact someone else to a degree to where, it causes a lot of disruption. So, like, if you want to live a life to where you don't want to go, like, have a quote unquote work family and bow to the needs of a corporation, you want to be able to, like, travel and work at the same time from a laptop or a coffee shop or wherever, right? If that's, then I support that. And, like, if you want to have good income and you want to find means to be able to make a lifestyle to where you can drive that Lamborghini and you can wear the clothes that you want to wear, and you can do the things that are passionate and meaningful to you, and maintain those lifestyles. Like, I don't see anything wrong with someone wanting to do that. So this whole podcast is just going to be about that, and everything going on in the current world, 2021 that we're currently still in, and what encompasses that. All right. So, I plan on having some other people on here too. Fido, you're probably going to be a regular for sure. And because, I mean, I know 100%, I know that you feel the exact same way that I feel about all this stuff. So in closing, Cody Mouse, how often are you doing these episodes? This was a badass subject. I'm unsure on that. I want to say, like, every day, but I certainly can't commit every day at the same time, at least for now. But I'm going to be planning for a minimum of 2 a week, at least for now. So today is Wednesday. I'm going to be trying to do Monday and Wednesday for sure, and then potentially extra ones after that. Probably some on the weekends. We'll have to see, Cody, how this goes. Christian, what IT jobs are recommended that are the path to sovereignty? Like, anything that you can do where you're remote, like cybersecurity. You don't have to do hardly any. You don't have to know hardly any code for that. I mean, a base understanding of code is going to help you with that, but, like, you don't have to know a lot.
Yep.
If you want to look into cybersecurity, there's a channel called Elevate Cyber. Ryan from Elevate Cyber, he's really big into cybersecurity. He for sure knows this stuff too. Very unexplored topic. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but sovereign individuality and total. Yeah. I mean, that's guys, that's the future. Listen here. One day I'm not going to need a bank. I'm not going to need, everything's going to be permissionless, right? Like, and that's the kind of lifestyle that I want to live, is a permissionless one. And I don't mean the permission to, in Grand Theft Auto to just, walk down the street and just to wherever I want, right? That's not the permission that I'm talking about. But permissionless lifestyle, like, if I want to go leave the country, that's fine. If I want to pay the amount of taxes that I deem necessary and proper to pay, like, I want to be able to do that. If I want to, people are going to be upset that I said that. If I want to be able to drive the car that I want to drive, like, I want to do that. If I'm able to wake up at the time that I want to wake up, I want to be able to do that. And again, not everyone's going to be able to do that, right? And I think in that book, The Sovereign Individual, splits people up in the haves and the have-nots, right? And I think that the have-nots are not going to have the ability to do that, but the people that have the ability and can, the haves will. Best way, Antonio says, the best way to start applying for software jobs with little experience. Yeah, Antonio, I used to work with you too, so I think you might already know this. But so there's basically like 3 steps. The first step, you got to do the learning, right? By learning, like, the minimum amount that you need to get a job done, right, or to just get your foot in the door someplace, right? 2, you have to build a portfolio of code. I recommend GitHub for that, but because most companies check people's GitHubs, even though they don't tell you, or they ask them for you. So you build these projects on your portfolio, and from there, you start stacking up basically like, a virtual resume of code that is tangible, that you can actually look at and talk to and explain, like, on an interview, like, hey, dude, like, I wrote this, ask me a question about it. And they can ask you a question about it, And they're like, oh, hey, this dude, like, he actually did write it. He's not just lying. And then 3, literally just mass applying. Recommend applying to places that you want, but the first job, the first 6 months in a year, that's the most important. And it's more important. And I would actually recommend people to take, like, people are like on their first job, I want to get like 6 figures. I mean, it's possible, 100% possible in your first job, but like that shouldn't be your main goal. The first job for you should be to have that bullet point marked off in your resume. And once you get a couple of years down, like, you can basically write your own ticket and take whatever pay you want and wherever place you want, or, whatever amount of freelance work you want to do for whatever pay. Once you have that experience, basically clout, resume, that's all it is. It's like clout, skill clout. Once you have that, then you're good to go. But, it's not the easiest streamlined process to doing all that stuff. And then having to like dish out applications to places. And another thing you could do too is just immediately start doing freelance work. At that point, you are your boss. But if you don't have a lot of like clientele that that's done work for you before, you're gonna have to like either go and hustle to find those people, or you're gonna have to drop your prices enough to where people are gonna be wanting to pay for that service as opposed to others just because the price is right. But after the first year or two, things start to change from there. Let's see. Thank you so much for the feedback. Y'all really motivated me today. No problem, dude. Appreciate you guys for the optimism for the future. Yeah, you should, dude. Because look, we're entering the roaring 20s. All right, there is literally a booming amount of opportunity. Theoretically, if you put your money in the right places this year and you're making enough income to where you can afford to do that, you could retire very easily. Right. Oh, so Chain, guys, get that subscribe bell for Monday's episode. Are y'all going to be in Q3 ELP Fido? Yes, we indeed are. Don't know how many of those I can actually make it, but going to be try to be there for as much support as I can. Antonio, I have some Ruby projects done and I have a GitHub. I think you do. I think I might follow you on GitHub, Antonio. Anna V, definitely being a sovereign individual, advice given to me: write a Medium article every day. Write a Medium article on everything you've Googled this week. Hey, that's not a bad idea. All right, guys, I need to go walk my dog because he is a bucket of energy. And I'm sure Fido's got a life that he wants to get back to too. Got anything you want to say, Fido, before we leave?
No, yeah, it was a pleasure to be on.
Thank you, guys. elifprogram.com, developerdirection.com. I am Josh. That is Fido. I'm Josh. You're Josh. We're all Josh. And we're out, guys. Good night.